Well, I really did not think about it at the moment. I just got all tore up. But for good or ill, at least it got your attention. Because some of you got to the restaurant ahead of me, and by the time I got in the door, my children who did not worship here this morning but went to Killen met me at the door and said, "Hey, we heard you were hollering and screaming in church and punching the air, and why did we miss it?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I wasn't there." And so my niece goes, "It was an out-of-body experience." And then they showed me the video, and I didn't even know I was punching the air. So, yeah, it worked at least. Somebody was awake. I'll rein it in just a little bit. Maybe. Maybe not. We'll see. The Greeks have good reason. John chapter 12, and it's really quite beautiful. And sometimes, again, it's kind of like that little nugget about Lazarus this morning. It gets lost because it's a triumphal entry and it's a beautiful story. And we teach that beautiful story to our young people in Bible class, and we should. How many Bible class teachers have ever taught the question, can we see Jesus from the Greeks? Oh, okay, well, we're going to teach it tonight. Verses 12 and 13, you have this group in Jerusalem. Who are they? They're the ones that we talked about at the end of chapter 11 who've been saying, hey, is Jesus going to show up? Well, I'm not sure, but it's like the rumor mill in every town that has ever existed, long before the phone lines existed. Somehow they get the message that Jesus is leaving Bethany and he's coming to town. And they're like the kids standing at the sidewalk when Daddy came home from work. Ooh, he's coming. And I almost picture, if you've ever seen Polar Express, at the end, when Santa Claus finally comes out the door and the elves are clamoring over the top of each other to get their first sight of Santa for the year, that's this. This is Jesus coming into town and folks are climbing on top of each other. They're elbowing each other. That's him. We've been waiting to see if he's going to come. Here he is. Here, the excitement, they're buzzing, they're tearing down palm trees and they're throwing them on the ground and they're throwing their coats on the ground. Jesus is coming to town. We've been waiting for this moment. And part of it is that it's Jesus. Part of it is we're going to see two other crowds. So what we're going to happen, watch this. You have this crowd that's already in Jerusalem, and you're going to have two other crowds that are going to come, and it's going to kind of mix. You're going to have three crowds that mix. And part of it is the excitement of Jesus himself. And then I think part of it is our human tendency to just want to see what's going to happen. Because remember, what has this crowd been wondering? Is he going to show? They have a bounty on his head. Should we turn him in? What is the establishment going to do? So if he shows, what's the establishment going to do? They're wondering what the fireworks are going to look like when Jesus hits town. So there's just that morbid curiosity as well. So Jesus is making his way up the road through the gate into Jerusalem, and it's about as much excitement as you can possibly imagine hitting Jerusalem in decades. It is big time stuff. And this is exactly why the rulers are so ill. This is why they have been so mad for a while. Because everybody clamors around him every time he comes to town. He has the popularity in the moment. And there is no news camera on him. There are no selfies being posted. He's not posting any reels. There's no TikTok videos. He's the real deal because his popularity is spreading by word of mouth. And everybody wants to see him. And they cannot handle it. We have lost control of our people. And they cannot handle it. So they're ill. And this is straight out of Psalm 118, verse 26. Hosanna to the King. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. And then they add, if you go back to Psalm 118, it is not there, the king of Israel. They get it as far as they can. They're looking for a physical king, but in a prophetic way almost, that's the king. We get to some extent that this is the guy. Verses 14 and 15, he is fulfilling Zechariah 9 and verse 9. That he will come riding into town, and the word is a diminutive. He's going to come riding into town on a donkey, on a little donkey. And it's, so you're straight out of Psalm 118, you're straight out of Zechariah 9 and verse 9, and so back to back, talk about the number of prophecies that Jesus fulfills. You're getting two of them back to back as he's riding into town. In verse 16, we get this kind of parenthetical, we get this kind of interlude where John tells us that this moment, without them even realizing it, drives a peg here for the disciples. And it does so without them even realizing it until later. And the statement that he makes is very similar to chapter 2 and verse 22. Remember when he cleansed the temple? And it says that they didn't really realize what was going on in the moment until later. And that's what it says here. They really didn't catch what was going on until later on. Side note, but question for you. What makes it finally ding? I'm going to give you a hint. This is cool. What makes it ding is chapter 14, verse 26. The Holy Spirit's going to come and He's going to guide you into everything and remind you of everything that you've heard, and as a subpoint, the things that you've seen and experienced that didn't click at the moment for you. So, after the resurrection, after the glorification of Jesus, Holy Spirit comes for them when? In the book of Acts. And then they can sit back and they can go, that's what that was. Ooh, that's what, and I can't imagine how that felt. That had to be so fascinating to realize, triumphal entry. Hosanna to the King. The donkey. Zechariah, Psalm, that's all going on. Had to be a beautiful moment for them. Staying in John, verse 17 and 18. I want you to start looking around the crowd. Who did we see at the first part of the text? We saw some people coming out of Jerusalem who had the news that Jesus was coming to town. Who else do we see? Well, Matthew does not tell us. Mark, same. Luke, same. John does though. And it's super cool. John tells us that the crowd from where? Where did he just come from? From Simon's house, from Bethany. This crowd that came what? To number one, see Jesus. And what else did it say? Who came to see Lazarus, who had been brought back from the dead. And Matthew and Mark and Luke talk about a crowd that is leading Jesus and throwing their coats on the road in front of him to pave the way. That crowd, John now identifies as being made up of two groups. It is made up of, John tells us, those who, number one, had been at the tomb. So the first part of this next group that is meshing with the group that came out of Jerusalem are witnesses to the resurrection of Lazarus. Now watch this. Not only do we have those who are crying out, Hosanna to the King, blessed is the name of the one who comes in the name of the Lord. That is the King of Israel. John says, what are they doing? They are witnessing to the resurrection of Lazarus. This is all going to play a part in just a couple of verses. They are witnessing verbally, that's the one that raised Lazarus from the dead. So they are walking into Jerusalem, verbally declaring, this man raises people from the dead. Then there is another subgroup that's with them who had come out because they had heard their witnessing at an earlier point and had come out to meet him. So they had already been out, seen Lazarus in Bethany, witnessed it. So they're giving secondary witness to, hey, these people saw Lazarus dead, they saw him alive, now we're witnessing to that fact too. Why is all that important? Because it sets up verse 19. And it's funny and it's so sad. But it sets up verse 19 when the council members, and this is informal, they're not holding a council meeting. They're part of this crowd. And they're getting bumped out of the way by these people who want to see Jesus. When they're like, there is nothing we can do about this. It is out of control. We give up. Why? Because the people have seen the evidence. They came from the tomb. They saw it happen. Then they went to Simon's house and saw the man still alive a couple of weeks later. And now they've come to Jerusalem to declare it to everybody on the road. And there's nothing they can do to stop it. That's why there's a target on Jesus. That is why there is a target on Lazarus. They cannot do anything about it at this point. This isn't the council. This is them realizing in the heat of the moment, we have lost. And there's nothing we can do about it. Now then, be honest. From their perspective, they are absolutely right. If they've interpreted it right, now they've interpreted it wrong. But if they have interpreted it right, and Jesus is there to lead a coup against Rome, he has the fervor around him to take this group and go straight to the Roman garrison in Jerusalem and knock on the door and start a revolt. Now, you don't know how it's going to turn out because what are they wielding? They're wielding palm fronds and some coats. But who knows how it turns out. But they have some numbers and they have some excitement. So in their minds, we have lost our nation. We have lost our place. Rome is about to kick us out. The fact that Jesus did what he did in public, and there were witnesses that they could not discredit, and who would not back down, who would walk the streets and declare, that is Lazarus, he was dead, he's alive. By the way, he was dead 4 days, now he's alive. That's the man that brought him back. We're cooked. There's nothing we can do about it. It's over with. Now then, the reason for the title. And it's one of those little nuggets that gets lost in the shuffle. It's verses 20 and 21. Now there were certain Greeks among those who were going up to worship at the feast. These therefore came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and began to ask of him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. Philip came to Andrew. Andrew and Philip came, and they told Jesus. All right, first thing, they're not diaspora Jews. They're not Greek-speaking Jews. There's a very specific word for Greek-speaking Jews. There's a very specific word for Greeks who are non-Jews, and that's the word that's used here. So these are, we'll use the example of Cornelius in Acts 10, the centurion in Luke 7 who built the synagogue. So they are God-fearers, they're converts, they're proselytes. They are those who have come to believe in some measure as a non-Jew, enough that they come to Jerusalem for the feasts. And remember, there's a part of the temple that they're allowed into, the outer courts. Ethiopian eunuch, later on in the book of Acts, fits that bill. The very specific part of the temple is called what? Court of the Gentiles. Let's get Matthew, Mark, and Luke in on this. I love this part of the story. Remember back in chapter 2 when I told you there are 2 temple cleansings? You have John's temple cleansing that takes place really early. And then you have the one that Matthew, Mark, and Luke tell us about that's really late. And it's connected to the what? To the triumphal entry. It's right here. And it's right between verse 19 and verse 20. Can you see it? If you can't see it, just stick it in there. Let me show you. If you go to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, what you have is the triumphal entry. You have the cleansing of the temple. And you have the court of the Gentiles being opened back up for its original purpose. What does Mark 10 say? It says Jesus took control of the Temple Mount, and he wouldn't allow anyone to bring anything in or out. So no buying and selling, no taking the shortcut that they would take, crossing the court of the Gentiles to do their business. So what? So the Gentiles had their place that they could come in and worship. So we put the cleansing that those 3 talk about, connected to the triumphal entry, where it takes place, and we put it in John. We've had the triumphal entry, so we put the cleansing of the temple in there, and then there's verse 20. And the Greeks come and say, we want to see Jesus. Why do you think they came? Do you think it's possible they want to say thank you for opening the court back up for us so that when we make the trip all the way up here for festival that we can get in and worship? Do you think they want to see the man who cares enough about them to return the temple to its proper function? Do you think it's possible that they want to meet the man that is changing everything about Judaism back to where it's supposed to be so that they have a place? I mean, they have converted. They are proselytes. They are there to worship. And if all the business has been moved into the outer court and they're not even allowed in, they don't have a place in the world to worship. It's the only place in all of the Gospels that we find them coming and asking, can we meet Jesus? And it is right on the heels, if you put it in order, of him cleansing the temple and taking control of their part of the court so that they have a place. I may be wrong, but the timeline fits. They have a reason to come looking for Jesus at this exact moment because he cares for them. Why did they come looking for Philip? I don't know. He has a Greek name, even though he's not of Greek descendancy. Maybe the same reason. It does point out that he's from Bethsaida. So is Andrew. Maybe he speaks Greek. We're not told. Don't know if the private audience is granted or not. But what we do know is it opens up a teaching moment that leads to Jesus' last public discourse. Everything after this discourse is going to be Jesus and the 12. And what he says, based on being able to jump off of this question, is the hour is actually getting closer where they're not going to have to ask for, as Greeks separate from Israel, a special audience with me. My glory's at hand, but before that I have to die first. The seed has to die and be planted and to multiply, and then everybody's going to have access to me. The Greeks are going to have access to me. The Gentiles in general are going to have access to me. Everybody's going to have access to me. They're going to enjoy that new life. Total access by everyone, so that those blessings are going to spread out. But notice how he talks about that. Notice about God glorifying Him. He talks about it, and this is something that has gone all the way through the book of John with us. Glory is connected to refusal to seek glory. Glory does not come from chasing glory. Glory comes from humility. Glory comes from the Father glorifying. And that's our Jesus trait for tonight. And he's worded it a little different this time, and so that's why we can go back to it and make it our trait for tonight. And he says as much for us. He said, you want to love your life in me? Hate it first. And he's not talking about self-deprecation. He's not talking about self-harm. He's saying, give it to me. Give it up. Don't harbor it. Don't try to keep it to yourself. Give it to me so that you find the real value in it being in me. And that's what those Greeks are doing. They're coming to Him. They want to make the connection with Him because He has opened up the world back to them. The world that they had been looking to have opened back up to them. All of this time. For decades, the temple had, just by practice, had been closed off to them when they would come to worship. And now suddenly it's open to them, and they're thankful for that, and they want to meet that man. And so he's saying, hey, that's now about to be available to absolutely everybody. And it is. Calvary opened up that door to the entire world. We are about to start a new mail out, and it's going to begin with the thrust being that there is salvation in no other. There is no other name under heaven whereby which men must be saved. You can go to Buddha, you can go to Muhammad, you can go to Jim Jones, you can go to anybody you want, but you do not have access to the Father. Access to God is through the Son. There is no other name under heaven. And until our world understands that, it will continue to walk in darkness. And so it's open tonight at Calvary. The blessing of life. You give Him your life, He gives it back to you in Him eternally. And if you're willing to accept that tonight, please come as we stand and sing.